Everybody Hates Rand is a Wheel of Time podcast that will contain spoilers for all 14 books. So if you're anti-spoiler, stop this, read all 14 books, and come back. We'll be here, waiting.
Our title is a joke and is meant to be taken as such. Everybody in this context refers to us and our cats. You are free to feel however you want about Rand. He's a fictional character. Please don't DM us.
The world is a mess, Dark One stretching out his hand. The dragon's reborn, the fire's been fanned, but everybody hates Rand. Everybody hates Rand. Everybody hates Rand.
Well, let's hop right into it. I forgot how I forgot.
How do we do this podcast?
This is Everybody Hates Rand, your friendly neighborhood Wheelie Time podcast. I'm Emily Jushaw.
And I'm Sally Gutcher.
We're okay. I promise we're okay. Well, here we are, the first 3 chapters of Towers of Midnight. I said last time that there were no Towers of Midnight, but here we get the allusions. There are multiple to possible contenders for the Towers of Midnight referred to in the title. It's not exactly clear which one it's supposed to be. First we get, in our little wind monologue. The wind is passing through the continent of Shanshan, which we have visited but once for Rand and Avienda to do the nasty. And honestly, if anything was going to happen on the Shanshan continent in this book, it would be the igloo fucking scene. Like, that seems tonally appropriate.
Yeah.
Just the convoluted sexual dynamics and issues of consent happening on #slavery, the continent. So, the wind goes through the Shanshan continent. I didn't even realize we were in Shanshan until I was like, oh, some weird place in the Borderlands.
Yeah, I was like, where the fuck are we? And then it said Shandar, and I was like, oh, okay.
It was like, people are up in arms because there's a murderer on the throne. And I'm like, isn't there always a murderer on the throne?
Yeah, I was like, that's called being
a monarch.
Yeah, a monarch, a head of state.
Yeah, an emperor. You get there on the blood of your enemies.
Yeah.
For the love. And, like, we've been told multiple times that it's particularly, like, Game of Thrones-ish.
Yeah.
Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Literal Game of Thrones. So, and I don't know why we're supposed to be shooketh.
But there are some, like, black towers, like Blackstone towers or something.
Yeah, the wind goes by some sort of abandoned fortress that is made up of 13, I think, black towers. And I read on the Wikipedia that these have something to do with, actually, I don't care to relate the history that I learned on the Wikipedia because it's not recorded in this book. I
want to know the history you learned on the Wikipedia.
It was something about, like, the guy who invented the Adam, the collar. He was, like, he was besieged in those towers by some ancestor of Arthur Pendragon. Arthur Pendrag.
That is a weird bit of history.
Yeah, anyway, they were like, and they're supposed to be left abandoned until it's time. And it's, like, unclear what the time is, but I guess, the last battle, maybe.
Okay.
I don't know. So that's why people are like, maybe we should go back to the Black Tower. Anyway, that I think is the less strong contender for the Towers of Midnight. Much more obvious, I feel, is Egg's dream about the Black Towers, of which there are also 13. And she sees them falling and rising and rising and falling until there are only 6 left, and one is taller than the other. This is a visual metaphor for the Forsaken, of whom Moradin is now in charge. So he was the tower that broke and then rose up again, and now is the big boy. And I am frustrated that there are still 6 Forsaken at this time in the series.
Yeah, I absolutely did not clock that the towers were supposed to be the Forsaken, because in my head I was like, there's just like 2, right?
No,
There's
fully
Grendel
6 of them
and
left.
There's just so many.
And many of the 6 who are left, 4 of the 6 are women, because Robert Jordan, like Rand, refuses to kill off women. So there's Moradin, Demandred, Grendel, as we know, is still kicking, as is Masana, which one of Egg's other dreams refers to Masana being in disguise in the White Tower.
Right.
And then Moghedien and Lanfear, nay, Sindane.
Nay.
Wait, Sindane, nay, Lanfear, are also walking about enslaved. So, yeah, that's the Towers of Midnight. This book isn't particularly, like, Forsaken driven, so I'm not sure why this book is titled that, but
I mean, it's a sick title. I think I said that
Sure,
last time.
yeah.
Towers of Midnight is a cool title.
rolls off the tongue.
But yeah, like up until this point, the titles of the Wheelie Time books have been at least somewhat thematic.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, or they have alluded more specifically in, like, epigraphs to something
You
that
know,
is going on
A Crown of
thematically.
Swords, yeah, Lord of Chaos.
Knife of Dreams.
Yeah. So it is a bit strange. I can see the desire to try and keep the Forsaken on people's minds, although again, to the first time reader, which is, this is my first time reading this book, as a reminder in case anyone has forgotten that,
Despite her expertise.
despite my obviously extremely well-formed and correct opinions about it. I did not clock that the Towers of Midnight and Egg's Dream were the Forsaken. There's not a lot of context for that if you're not like, I remember there are 6 Forsaken, and
Yeah, there are 6 remaining.
yeah.
Yeah, there's another dream. Egg has 3 dreams. One's about Masana, one's about the Forsaken / the Towers of Midnight, and then the third one is even less clear. Has to do with a, like, spherical crystal made up of 23 components and Rand breaking it.
Yeah.
And you're like, what the fuck does the number 23 have to do with anything? There's not 23 countries in the world, surely.
Yeah.
Like, there's not 23 seals on the Dark One's prison, so that's unclear. I looked on the Wikipedia, and all they had to say was, like, we think maybe it has to do with the crystal sphere is the White Tower itself, because there are 23 when you combine all of the representatives of the Hall of the Tower, plus the Keeper, plus the Amerlin seat, that's 23. And I'm like, that's a ludicrous leap. If it's going to symbolize the White Tower, why doesn't it be white?
Why wouldn't it be a
Why don't
tower?
it be white instead of
Why would it be a crystal
transparent?
sphere?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did think it was the Dark One's prison because Rand is cutting the little ropies. But
Yeah.
again, I was like, I'm really bad at interpreting Egg's dreams. So the dreams are really confusing, and Egg provides us her interpretation of one of them, which is Masana as a serpent eating little baby eagles. And she's like, this one's pretty clear to me. And I'm like, oh, I'm glad it was clear to you. But she does say, the other 2 are more confusing, and maybe she'll figure them out through the course of the book. But it is kind of, if we're going to call the book Towers of Midnight, to not get some sort of, explanation of the tower, either set of towers in text when they are first presented to me.
Yeah,
I'm a little lost.
My other beef with the title Towers of Midnight is that, to me at least, it automatically makes me think of the Black Tower. The tower that is, midnight colored.
Midnight colored. Yeah, I also get really frustrated because it's like, I know I have not read this book, but to me this is like the Tower of Genji book. That's where we're going.
The Tower of Genji on the cover.
And it's like the Tower of Genji is a single tower, and it is white stone.
Yeah,
so
it's not black.
It really bugs me.
And then, like, the Black Tower there are, like, 2 sections of this book that take place in the Black Tower or have to do with the conflict in the Black Tower. That's going to be a much more prevalent, like, plot line, through line in the next book, A Memory of Light. So I'm not suggesting that the next book should have been titled Towers of Midnight, but like maybe some of the stuff that took place in that book should have taken place in this book, instead of us having to wallow with Galad and Perrin in the mud.
Yeah. So the wind goes through Shanchin, Shandar. Everyone over there is mad because presumably it's Semiraj on the throne, you know, or whatever is going on over there.
Well, now Semiraj is dead, so who knows who her, like, puppet.
Yeah, you're right.
It's, like, irrelevant completely, but
yeah,
it amuses me that there's not even any effort to explain it.
The wind goes across the ocean, the entire ocean.
Wind follows the trade winds, and the book is like, hey, I don't know if you've heard of this, but trade winds. And I'm like, they're like, in another universe, they'd be called trade winds. And I'm like, this book has sailing ships, does it not? Why not use the phrase trade winds?
I know.
Sorry, it made me so mad.
No, it made me so mad too. It's like the winds, which in another age would be called trade winds. And I'm like, this is so, like, I can't think of, like, an opposite term for immersive, but, like, nothing took me out of this
so
more.
fast.
So silly. But we go across the whole ocean, and we land in an orchard in Andor-ish at the bottom of Dragon Mount that has lost all of its apples.
Yeah, sort of in the no man's land up there that is, like, near Tarvalon, but not really. Yeah, all the apples have fallen. What a disaster, we are told. They're like, it's not apple fallen time, but the apples like, done been fallen.
They're little, like, apple buds. If you've ever had an
babies.
Apple tree, there's an apple tree in their backyard. Edible. So they're just, like, when they fall, they're, like, super bitter and disgusting and not big enough to be, like, a meal. So, and it's apparently this, like, huge orchard, which basically, like, is the entire town's, like, livelihood. They all depend on it for labor or food or something, and
especially right now because everyone's fucking starving because all the food in all of the world is going bad, and it's a real problem, and farming sucks.
Yeah, but who should walk down out of the mountains than Jesus?
Our point of view narrator in this scene is a guy named Almin Bunt, and as he reminds us, the last time we saw him was way back in Eye of the World, giving a ride to Rand and Matt.
Is this the same guy?
Yeah. He gives them a ride into Camelin. Yeah, he, like, mentions it obliquely, and when he sees Rand, he's like, have I seen you before? And Rand's like, yes. Then moves on immediately.
Yeah, Rand is in his, like, weird girl era.
Yeah.
Which we'll get into.
So this is a guy we've met before, which I just think is a funny, like, as you'll recall, the Gathering Storm more or less started with a completely random guy, a guy very much like Bunt, who's just, you know, a farmer with a whole life and a whole family that can be summarized in 2 pages. In Bunt's case, he's a widower.
Yeah.
He's loyal to the queen. He has a farm in Andor, but right now he's not in the farm at Andor because he needed to be in this scene.
Yeah, his sister's husband got bubble of eviled away.
Or something.
So he's here with his weird nephews.
His 12-year-old nephews.
His 12 and 15-year-old nephews.
Uncle, the farm!
But what about the farm?
The apples ain't supposed to fall like this.
Yeah.
And you're like, what the?
And you're like, what is happening in this scene? But what is happening in this scene in a sort of, like, mythological, archetypal context is the connection between the savior and the land itself. I think we've alluded to this, or maybe talked about this more explicitly, that you know, with the decay of the world and the decay of food and the decay of farming as the Dark One comes is a very interesting manifestation of evil, and it is not, like, you know, mythologically out of context that things would not decay around Matt, Perrin, and Rand as these sort of, like, Ta'Veren-esque figures. It's very common if we're talking about, like, the success of a people, of course, in many, I'm really struggling to get this out and using a lot of filler words, but in like, so if we kind of go back, I keep thinking of sort of like Arthurian literature or like literature surrounding kings, Shakespearean kings. There'll be a strong connection between the leader or the savior and the land. The success of the people will be measured by how like fruitful the land is. In these sort of feudal times, this would be, of course, a great measurement of success because it would mean how well are the people being fed, how much can they sell. And this is sort of moved on in literature as a sort of symbolic representation for how good something is, how good the leader is doing, how well the people are doing. This symbol between sort of the leader and fertility, almost like how fertile is the land, how successful is it. So when Rand comes down out of the mountain, and what happens is he's walking by and the apples, just the trees just like flourish. There are just like ripe red apples falling off all of the trees. This is directly tied to Rand being a more enlightened figure, being more connected, being better for the land and the people. He's literally better for the land in this instance. So
Yeah, infamously in the last book, Rand's usual Taviran influence of preventing food around him from rotting failed in Bandari-Ban, the capital of Eridomon, when that last shipment of food, or the food that had been brought in to alleviate the starvation of the populace, just rotted all at once.
Yeah.
And that was very symbolic of Rand giving up on trying to save this people and Rand's state of mind and general well-being. Like you said, it's a very like medieval concept for the king to be connected to the land. Famously, like if there were like famines and droughts were really bad times for monarchies, because that was the only person that people could blame besides God, who you couldn't blame for things in medieval Europe. And as you alluded to, Rand is sort of our Fisher King figure. The Fisher King has a unhealing wound that is tied to the decay of the land. So the quest is that in order to fix the land, you have to fix the king, heal the king. So it's a little frustrating that Rand is still walking around with his two unhealable wounds.
Yeah, that's a good point. They should have been healed during his enlightenment. That's
I think I made that argument several books ago that he should have just had those things get fixed, but alas. Apples are, of course, symbolic themselves of enlightenment from a Western Christian philosophy, so that's particularly symbolic. So yeah, Rand walking through here, the apples blossoming all at once, leading to a fixed economy, these people won't starve, which is great for them, these 200 people. Yeah, this is all indicative of Rand being enlightened, Rand being a healthier person mentally and emotionally, etc. Of course, he walks in and is the weirdest fucking... He's got big, like, TikTok empath energy.
Yeah, he really does. I'm an empath. As an empath, Rand can really feel when people are starving, He is so funny. I was just like... I don't think it is intentional on behalf of the authors to be like, once our Jesus figure is enlightened, he really is just like in his weird bitch era.
He seems so much crazier now than he ever did.
And it's just so funny to me. Like, he's so bizarre. Like, this guy is trying to talk to him. He's like, there's nothing up there on Dragonmount. Like, there's nothing to eat. There's nothing good. And Rand's like, I wouldn't say there's nothing good up there. Yeah. I wouldn't say there's nothing of no value. And this starving farmer is like, okay.
Yeah, Rand is like walking around. He's giving Galadriel. He's giving... In place of a dark lord, you will have a queen.
Galadriel is a perfect example. Like that really haunting scene while she's talking, but she's staring directly at Frodo and is like, Frodo of the Shire.
And everyone's like, what the fuck?
That's Rand.
Yeah, if you dropped Galadriel into Game of Thrones, everyone would be like,
She's weird.
Yeah.
That's Rand. Now.
Yeah, he's giving Galadriel. He's giving Gwyneth Paltrow and Goop.
Yeah.
He's just weird health bitch energy.
It's, yeah.
yoga guru.
He's a wellness influencer.
cult leader, yeah.
Yeah.
He's extremely, extremely weird. And Bunt is just like, well, okay.
All right, fella.
Rand's like, you better gather all your people to go
Pick those
pick
apples.
those apples. And he's like, okay, and runs and grabs some people to pick the apples. And we're all supposed to be, like, reassured by, I mean, symbolically, we're very reassured, but then Rand himself is like, ugh.
Rand himself is just like so weird.
Yeah, you're like, okay.
Like, have you guys seen that TikTok sound where it's like, do you ever think the wind is trying to tell us something, but we just can't hear it? That's Rand right now.
I haven't heard that TikTok.
It's really
sound.
funny. It's smash cut with the Woody Harrelson, like, I just need you to stop saying odd shit.
Yeah.
So,
My entire attitude toward Rand in this book is going to be Woody Harrelson in True Detective Season 1 saying, I just need you to stop saying odd shit.
yeah. I just need you to stop
While
saying
Rand
odd shit.
Matthew McConaughey's it around.
Yeah.
I don't sleep. I only dream. Shut up!
You're so annoying.
So it's actually incredible that they've managed to make his character as annoying as his last manifestation.
Massive lane change, but like has not become more tolerable to me as a character.
Yeah, still incredibly weird.
Then Perrin.
Yeah, now we're getting into the overall structure of this book, which, chapter 1 is just a few pages and is all in one point of view. But we're getting into extremely short chapters with extremely short, not extremely perhaps, but pretty short points of view within. So it's going to be hard to just relate those without consulting the book. We get Perrin. He is on the road, away from Malden, as he was the entirety of last book. Here's the update. It's been fully a month since Malden. They have traveled, what Perrin expected to travel in a week, but they were severely delayed by some bubble of evil that caused snakes to rampage through the camp, biting people. And the poison, particularly, wouldn't you know it, affected the only people who can make gateways.
Yeah, so as if Grady and Niald weren't going through it enough.
As if fucking Grady and Niald hadn't suffered enough. Now they're laid up with snake bites.
Yeah.
Perrin's like, they almost died. And I'm like, they were almost dead before. How could it get worse for them?
Like, where they were at rock bottom.
Yeah.
Where did their health
Just start
go?
digging.
Those poor little guys.
I know. Perrin does tell us that it wasn't just Grady and Niald, it was all channelers who got bit, who were particularly affected, but of course Grady and Niald were the only ones who could travel. So, it's a problem. They've also been just, like, delayed by weather stuff.
Yeah, it's very muddy.
Yeah, Perrin's huge, just, city of people that he is caravanning behind him just keeps growing because bandits, mercenaries, refugees, whoever just keep flocking to him like, hey, we heard that food doesn't go bad. And Perrin, for some reason, is like, yeah, of course food doesn't go bad, because food is normal. And isn't like, wow, literally 9,000 people have come to me being like, food is going bad everywhere, and I'm not.
Perrin is not very good at patterns.
Yeah, ironically, considering he's in the pattern, and he's the patterns specialist boy.
He's sure what it feels like.
Perrin is also like, things have more or less socially gone back to the way that they were pre-Malden. Arganda is annoying. That's Alyandra's head of the army. Berlane is annoying. Fail and Perrin are not doing great.
Yeah.
Marriage-wise. They did find Massima's body, which is extremely funny because Fail did not own up to murdering him. She was just like, imagine that.
Like, wow, Perrin's like, bandits must have got him and failed washing dishes or whatever. It's like, how interesting.
Yeah, and I'm like, honestly, queen
Slay.
shit.
Yeah, she really did a good job with that one.
Serving cunt in a God-fearing way. We love to see it fail. As they're traveling, they run into a member of, like, ages ago, before the Battle of Malden, Perrin sent away Basil Gill with, like, a little caravan of people, including Linny and our good old friend Lamgwin.
Lamgwin, my beloved, and his mean girlfriend.
Yeah, and his mean girlfriend. That whole clown car of people. They were sent ahead with supplies. They have now left someone behind, like, on the road to inform Perrin, hey, they changed the route because we'd received word that the originally chosen route is impassable. So now they're kind of at, like, more or less at a crossroads with Perrin trying to decide, like, okay, well, do we follow Gil? Do we try and keep going the way that we had originally planned? Do we wait for the Ashman to recover? Blah, 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 blah. The usual Perrin situation. Just stuck.
Just stuck.
Choices ahead of us, and honestly, none of the choices really matter.
Yeah.
None of us care which way Perrin goes. And it's not really terribly relevant to the narrative, so axe or hammer, who cares?
But this time there's a third worse option.
Yeah. Fail comes up and is like, Perrin, you're such a great leader. And Perrin's like, no, I'm not. I'm the worst. Everyone hates me. All I've done is a bad job, which everyone loves that in just completely self-flagellating. And Fail's like, this is fun. So
Feels like literally no one has said that except you.
yeah.
He's like, that's not true.
Fail's like, you're doing great. You need to have some confidence. Chill out. She's also like, honestly, I think Malden was good for us. And Perrin's like, what an interesting thing to say.
It is an interesting thing to say, Phil. In what way was it good for you?
Maybe we should unpack this in couples counseling that you guys will never go to.
I have been racking my brain for you, like, what does she mean?
I don't know.
Phil, what are you talking about?
I don't know.
Fa'il, what are you saying?
I think she's just trying to be like, trauma always has meaning, which isn't true.
Which is not true. Your suffering does not always have meaning.
Yeah, and it's
just
like,
suffering.
Sure, Fail, if you want to be like, what happened to me in my captivity has, like, I've learned important lessons, and
Sure.
I've taken some positives away from it, like, that's fine, but you don't get to speak for Perrin.
Yeah, you are allowed to make meaning out of your own experiences in whichever way works for you. You're allowed to make meaning out of your own suffering. You cannot, inherently your own suffering does not have meaning, and you cannot dictate that for other people.
Mm-hmm.
This was just what you said. Sorry, I'm on my soapbox.
No, she just seems to be, like, implying that, like, they needed a break in their relationship.
Yeah, or some shit.
Which is a wild thing to say, considering that she did have a break in her relationship in the form of a man sexually assaulting her pretty repeatedly, whereas Perrin was just obsessed with her the entire time, so he didn't get a break.
Yeah.
It's just wild, the usual. We then switch over on page 69, to Galad, who is awakening in captivity. He has been beaten up, but does not seem to have undergone any torture yet. So he just, like, wakes up from being passed out. He's naked, which is, how the turntables, I guess.
Like, for once, equal opportunity.
Yeah, for once it's a hot guy who's naked instead of
chained up and dirty and beaten and bloody.
Yeah, but don't worry, he's still got his dignity. His dignity.
Fuck off.
Galad wakes up and is like, well, I'm not afraid of torture. I fear neither death nor pain. What do you fear? He literally says he fears neither death nor pain. Like, that's a direct quote. And someone should have said, what do you fear?
A cage.
Okay, Galad.
Oh, you're in a cage.
Anyway, he gets himself up, tries to get himself cleaned up to prepare for what he assumes is the inevitable torture. When some guys walk in, led by his guys, Galad's like, I told you not to rescue me. They're like, no, we've come with some of Asunwa's guys, and they show him Asunwa's head. They're like, isn't this what you would be delighted to see?
Yeah.
Galad.
That would be so funny.
He's like, ooh, I'm just really bad with gore. Could we not do this?
Could we not do this? I didn't need to see his severed head.
Galad's like, what happened? They're like, well, we were just so compelled. So moved, really, by how you presented yourself and how honorable and cool and manly you were, and how obviously you're a better White Cloak than Asunwa because you're better at scriptures than he is. That we just decided to, have an armed conflict about it.
Yeah, like, this entire thing is very idealistic, which is fitting for Galad. Like, it opens, and he's got the same philosophy about pain that Egg took the entire time she was being beaten in the White Tower, which is just, like, basically, I guess not quite the same. He's just like, I'm distracting myself and pretending that it doesn't exist. Like, it's not even that bad. Like, I am doing this for a higher purpose. Like, I can bear anything as long as, like, the White Cloaks aren't killing each other or whatever. Which is, like, extremely idealistic. And he's like, I know it will be hard, but I'm going to stay, faithful to the truth no matter what happens to me under torture. And it's like, okay, well, we never get to see that play out, so there's no way for us to say whether that was true or not. Glad. And then, of course, he never has to go through torture because everything that he said worked out perfectly. All these guys were deprogrammed immediately by what Galad said about how White Cloaks
His
shouldn't
2 sentences
kill each other.
that he only said in front of like 3 guys.
Yeah. And it's just like, yeah, Galad did the right thing and it worked out in his favor, and everyone just notices how much incredible integrity and honor and manliness he has. And it's just like, Kate, what a great little fan fiction somebody wrote.
Yeah, what a great little fantasy about leadership. And
yeah, you're right. Fan fiction would be much more compelling than this. I shouldn't say that.
Yeah, there would at least be like cool sex. Probably.
Yeah, definitely.
We'd at least get more of the psychosexual obsession between Asunwa and Galad play out.
So yeah, it is just this little like fantasy scene, and it's just like the whole thing feels very unsad. Not saying, again, I don't want to watch Galad get tortured, but it's like there's no consequence to any of his actions.
Yeah, no one wants to watch Galad get tortured, but there is like a narrative sort of cowardice in being like, here's a character who will of course stand up for torture and fully believes that he can stand up to torture and he's a perfect boy and, he won't start crying and screaming as soon as he gets tortured like literally everyone else in the entire world does.
Yeah.
Because he's God's perfect boy or whatever. And to just be like, well, we will never have to see Galad reckon with the reality that torture destroys you.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's not even something that is because of the structure of the scene. We just never would have to do that anyway because we saw Egg get tortured and never have to confront that reality.
Yeah.
This series just doesn't believe in making its protagonists confront that reality.
Yeah.
So I think that's what's frustrating here. And then, yeah, of course, there's the just, like, ongoing fantasy that if you're good enough at talking, and if you're idealistic enough, and if you have the right goals and ambitions, and the right reasons for doing the things that you do, then everything will work out. Which, for some reason, only ever really applies to Galad and Gawain. I don't know why other people don't seem to do that, but...
yeah.
When it's that transparent, it starts to feel again like we can see the blueprint. Like we're just like, okay, clearly Brandon Sanderson and Robert Jordan really need Galad to be in charge, and they want to be Galad completely in charge of the White Cloaks so that there's not all this confusion about some of the White Cloaks are with the Shanshan, blah 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 blah. We just need things to be nice and tidy before the last battle. And it's like, okay, but you could have done that, honestly, without having this scene to begin with.
Yeah, this all could have happened off screen.
Yeah, if Galad just showed up with all the White Cloaks and was like, yeah, met Asunwa, killed him, and we'd be like, great.
Be like, good, he was a freak. He was a little creep in the darkness.
Yeah, and we never gave a single fuck about him or viewed him as a viable threat, really, so...
Yeah, he was just a creep, fine to kill.
Yeah, whatever.
Good riddance. Now you've got all the magic terrible boys.
Yeah, so this is just the ongoing narrative about Galad being rewarded for being a religious terrorist. Because unlike the other religious terrorists, he's pure at heart.
Yeah.
Like his namesake, Galahad from the Arthurian legends, who could only see the Holy Grail because he was so pure. And a virgin. Which we'll never know if Galad is a virgin because no one's written the fan fiction.
Does Galad fuck?
Probably not.
Question to the people. God, you're right. He must be so insufferable to be around. And as a real person, I'd be like, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, if I were Bayer, is that who is with him? Dane Bornhold, struggling with addiction, and Bayer, who struggling with being a little bitch. Those two. If I were either of those two, I'd be like, God, I fucking hate this guy.
Yeah, or maybe they're in a throuple.
Where's the fan fiction, people? I would actually rather claw my own eyes out than read a fan fiction in which Bayer, Mr. Torture Jr., Torture Jr., is like having crazy sex with Dane Bornhold, the most nothing character of all time.
I didn't say it was crazy sex. I just said they were
vanilla,
in a throuple.
Incredibly vanilla sex.
Just going about life. They got a lot of administrative tasks to see to.
Okay. Then we get to the third chapter wherein we get an Egg point of view as she is dreaming. First, she, in her dream, sends a message to Nynaeve being like, bitch.
Yeah, which feels a little aggressive.
Yeah, she's like, where the fuck have you been? Meet me. Stop avoiding me.
And it's like, have you been reaching out to her? This was not communicated to me that you were trying to get in contact with Nynaeve.
Yeah, it kind of seems like you've had other stuff to deal with in the last few books, so you just haven't been talking to Elaine and Nynaeve, but what do I know? Anyway, she's like, come on, come to the White Tower, we gotta figure stuff out. And she has her special dreams, which we've already talked about. Those kind of wake her up. She gets up and is about to leave when Sylviana knocks on her door and is like, the Dragon Reborn's here. And Egg's like, excuse me?
Yeah.
Smash cut to Swan, who is gathering with pretty much every other Aes Sedai in the tower, awaiting this meeting between Rand and Edwene, with the Hall of the Tower looking on. Kind of a nothing point of view. They're just like, what's going on? Our good old friend, Captain Chubane, is like, he just walked in. Go figure. And everyone's like, whoa.
Wow.
How scary.
Whoa.
And it's like, yeah, it's not like he's got a big sign on. It's not like Dragon Reborn is tattooed on his forehead.
Yeah. And, like, even if it was, you people don't pay attention to anything.
Yeah, he's a man. You guys would be like,
a dude.
We hate dudes. Gareth Bryn shows up and is like, you seem nervous. She's like, yeah, I always thought it would be me meeting with the Dragon Reborn, because, like, that was my whole life's work, and I was present at that crazy prophecy, you know, and blah, 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 blah. But I'm happy it's Edwene, not me. And Bryn's like, wow, you're so mature. And she's like, I know. And they fuck in the hallway.
It's, like, I think there's some interesting thing there about Swan's character, about what you do when, like, your life's work and ambition gets handed off to somebody else. But it really is, like, I wish, like, it would have been more interesting to me if she wasn't mature about it. If she was just like, yeah, I'm pissed and I'm sad that everything turned out this way. And yeah, Edwine's going to do a better job than me, but I'm still allowed to be pissed about it.
Yeah, like, you're still allowed to have your feelings about it. You don't have to, like, give yourself therapy every time that you have a negative feeling.
Yeah, you don't have to be like, well, yeah, it's fine.
And I have complete closure about it now, immediately.
Yeah, it's dumb.
But Rand has been, like, shielded by, like, 26 women, something ridiculous, which,
Double
you know.
shielded.
Yeah.
Is that a thing?
The Rand of 6 books ago would have never gone within reach of 13 Aes Sedai. That's really freaky to him, but new and improved Rand, or rather just new Rand.
New and weirder Rand.
New and weirder Rand is like, it's fine, because I'm magic.
No biggie. My magic moon dust will keep me safe from this.
But they arrive, Rand spots Swan and is like, Swan, my old bestie. She's like, what? He's like, thanks for taking an arrow for me back in the day. And she's like, literally had no choice in the matter. And he's like, still?
Thank you. Like, does magic fingers at her and walks away.
He's like, I just know that seeing Egg will hurt, even though I thought that wound long healed. And Swan's like, literally none of my business.
And it's like, okay.
Okay, oversharing. Okay.
You are oversharing in this hallway.
Bye. Then we switch back to Egg's point of view as Rand enters the room. She's like, whoa, something seems way different about him. He's so confident.
Something's off about her.
Something's off about her. What's that for?
Like in Avatar when Zuko and Azula are having their final acne cut.
Something's off about her. And then we see Azula with crazy and her
badly cut bangs. I can't tell, but she's slipping.
I can't tell, but I always loved that Avatar made the supreme joke of, like, a woman going insane will always try to cut her own bangs.
It's so good.
There's no sign of mental instability like a woman trying to cut
her own bangs.
Ugh, so good.
I know, it's such an iconic... Azula, seriously, the bangs are so bad.
She's slipping. Anyway, she's like, you know what's crazy is that he was slipping, but now he seems to be hanging on really
yeah, like,
well.
he actually seems fine.
He doesn't seem crazy at all. She's like, what's happened? And he says something insane like, I was reforged. Katsuan did it by accident. And Egg's like, okay.
Did she?
She's like, what are you doing here? He's like, and then he just says more insane shit about how, like, he's like, I realized that I've hated Aes Sedai, but really I just hate fate, and I just need to accept that everything's fine. And Egg's like, you literally did not answer my question.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, he says something wild about, like, what does he say? It's so weird. I've been struggling to avoid Aes Sedai strings of control, and yet I allowed other strings, more dangerous strings, to wrap around me unseen.
I've got no strings to hold me down. And she's like, what?
She's like, why are you here?
She's
That
like,
is the question.
Could you answer a single question that I'm putting to you? She's like, hey, Rand, I think you need to see some mental health specialists. Let's go see how, because she like thinks he's having a delusional break.
Yeah.
Which, of course, we as the readers are like, oh, Egg, you stupid idiot. Of course he's enlightened, you know, because the narrative has not set us up to be really sympathetic to Egg in this moment.
Yeah, I mean, this whole thing is called the Amerlin's anger.
Yeah, even though Egg doesn't seem particularly angry.
Yeah, it's really strange, and it's just like, what? I don't know, the whole setup is weird, but he's saying his odd shit.
He's saying odd shit. She's like, let's go talk to some people. He's like, sorry, I can't, but I've got to go. There's so little time. And she's like, okay, we really have to make sure that you're not crazy and that everything's good with you. And he's like, no, everything's fine. I'm Lutheran. He like alludes to the fact that he's like, I know what I have to do because what I did last time sucked. And she's like, so are you Lutheran? And he's like, what? He's like, I'm both. I am all. I am one. Blah, 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 blah. He's like, Egg, in 1 month, please meet me. In 1 month, I'm going to travel to Shale Gul and break the seals on the Dark One's prison. I want your help. So I want to meet with you the day before I go to Shale Gul and discuss terms. And she's like, fucking terms? Like, we're bargaining now. He's like, you'll see. And she's like, you can't break the seals. That's going to let the Dark One out. And he's like, well, I have to clear away the rubble. And she's like, I haven't been with you for the last 6 books going through this philosophical journey, so this is very confusing and sudden to me. Yeah. What are you talking about? He's like, we'll talk in a month. She's like, what? Rand, you can't. What? It's the most confusing conversation on her side of things.
Yeah.
She's like, you can't break the seals. He's like, meet me at the field of Marilor, which is just north of Tar-Valon, in a month's time. Then he leaves. And everyone's like, whoa, that was crazy. We couldn't even talk or move because his Taviran influence is so strong. How'd you do it, Egg? And she's like, I'm just special, I guess. And And everyone's like, well, we can't let him break the seals in the Dark One's prison. And she's like, we have to get allies. End of scene. She's like, oh, I really need to talk to Nynaeve now. So, very confusing scene from Egg's point of view. A prime example, especially with the two characters of Rand and Edwene, who are often like the epitomes of this particular issue in the Wheel of Time, that if characters would just like communicate in a calm and normal way and have conversations the way normal humans do, then we would not have the problems that we have.
Sure.
But Rand's on his wellness health bullshit and is like, everything's fine and I'm perfect. And I'm Lutheran and I'm enlightened. And so, of course, Edwene is like, Rand is fully in the middle of a delusion.
Yeah.
He wants to, like, nuke the world, basically. Obviously, I have to, like, try and stop him. And Rand, instead of just being like, here's the deal. Let's sit down over lunch and I'll tell you what the last few months, years have been like for me, and then you'll see where I'm coming from. Like, if they just had a normal conversation, it probably would have been fine. But instead, we're setting up this sort of, like, conflict of, like, Edwene is going to gather people, Rand is going to gather people, and they're going to meet at the Field of Marilor and have to have some sort of crazy discussion about what's going to happen.
Yeah, and,
I have not missed the fact that Rand is our prime male character and is representative of all things male and masculine, whereas Egg is our prime female, representative of all things feminine.
Yeah.
It's all very obvious.
Yeah, and there can be instances in which lack of communication can lead to plot in a way that is fun and fulfilling. Like, this is the second time I've mentioned William Shakespeare this episode, but, like, a strong driving force in a lot of Shakespeare plays are just, like, people don't have all the information, and they're not saying things that other people understand. Particularly fun in comedies, but a driving force in a lot of the tragedies, and it works fine and lovely. And it can work in other instances too, but, like, we have done this so many times in Wheel of Time where it's just, like, the conflict comes from people not being willing to have conversations that it just is, like, draining. Like, I'm over it. I was over it 6 books ago.
I'm like, I get it. Men and women are different, according to Robert Jordan, and see the world differently and can't talk to each other, and therefore everyone's mad at each other. And I'm like, this isn't the, like, sparkling social commentary that you seem to think that it is. For one thing, a woman would never have a position of power the way Egg does.
A female pope?
Yeah, God, are you kidding?
An all-female
We had a young
Catholic
pope
church?
before we had a female pope.
Yeah, they put a child up there before they'd let a woman do it.
But that's where we end, with sort of those things set up. That sort of confrontation setting up between Edwene and Rand. We know what Edwene is maybe going to be doing for some of this book. And nothing really has been set up with Perrin and Galad. Perrin's at a crossroads, and Galad is in charge still.
Nothing's changed, but Galad is now wearing a flimsy robe, if that helps.
Yeah, he's naked, if that helps you.
Just emotionally,
better.
yeah. Doesn't have to, but... Okay, it's time to track our mood. Let me get our markers.
Okay, I need a refresher on the colors.
Yeah. Okay. Are we feeling, at the end of this episode, happy, sad, dead inside, mad, confused, or like we want to quit the podcast?
I feel dead inside, primarily.
Okay.
How about you?
Weirdly enough, I do feel a little happy for once.
Well, yeah, then show that.
Because
get a little green on the board.
Yeah,
while
get a
we
little
still
green
can.
on the board while, life still feels good. Because I do think enlightened influencer Rand is extremely high comedy value.
Yeah, that is pretty funny.
I don't think he's supposed to be, but that's how I feel personally.
Definitely not supposed to be a figure of comedy,
Yeah.
but it is incredibly funny.
I don't sleep, I only dream.
I don't sleep, I only dream. I'm gonna go watch True Detective Season 1 just to get the vibes.
I've never seen True Detective.
No, it's pretty gory, so you won't like it very much.
I'm trying to be braver.
I don't know how much value it really has, except for that one scene is extremely funny, and the rest of it is, like, weird.
Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah.
Gosh, I'm losing all my markers. They're falling into the cracks of the couch. Okay, we have tracked our mood. We have talked about many things.
Yeah, let's sign off. This is it. God, what am I doing?
This is Everybody Hates Rent, your friendly
Again,
neighborhood.
we just start over. The wheel of time has no endings and no beginnings. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Thanks to Glenna Mackenzie for our theme song. Thanks to our patrons on Patreon and our followers on social media.
Yes.
Yep.
You guys are exceptional.
Yep. Do you have a sign off?
This is all I can think of. Sorry. My nephew turned 5. Congratulations to my nephew Declan. What a big kid. And I went to his birthday party last weekend, and my niece, who is just a little over 1, they set her down and she started walking. And I was like, holy shit, was I the only person who witnessed this child's first steps?
God. Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, she's walking. And from the other room, everyone is like, yeah, she's been doing that for like 6 weeks. And I was like, nobody told me.
Yeah, thanks everyone for the news alert.
Yeah, I was like, what the heck? This is like a huge milestone in a child's life. And everyone was like, yeah, sorry.
Old news.
Old hat, bitch. And Emery was like, yeah, bye, girl. See you later. And just ran out of the room.
Imagine if she just walked and then looked at you like no one will ever believe you.
I seriously was like, oh my God. I didn't even have like my phone. I couldn't even take a video or anything. Everyone was like, yeah, no big deal. She's been walking forever.
Okay, everyone. Have a good week.
Bye.
Bye.